am the program manager in Clark Park, and it's my pleasure to work working with Tess. She has been helping a lot in Clark Park, so thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Anthony Benavides, and I'm the director of the Clark Park Coalition. We're Tess intern, and we're a great person, and also the best intern we
Aw.
So best.
So, yeah. And my connection to CAS are the Commons here. We had some classes here through Peter Hammer with the Detroit Equity Lab
Oh, yeah.
last year, and so that was my introduction to the Commons and how it works and all the ins and outs of it. But it's a great space, and thank you for inviting us.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Brian Merlos. I'm with Audubon Great Lakes. I'm the climate field organizer. I share office space upstairs with the National Audubon Society, and I'm close with Marion, and I went to school together, and I'm going through other activism things, so very happy to be here, and congrats to the program graduates.
I'm Eleanor. I'm an alum of the program. I was in the spring 2012 group, and now I work as the community organizer for Detroit Juice for Justice. Some others say peers.
Yeah.
Fun. We won't do this as a group. I'm Molly Hubble. I'm the farmer for, well, one of two farmers for Keep Growing Detroit. Yeah, right? I've been here many times for community meetings over the years with Detroit community growers and also community activists in the 5 years I've been in the city. But very happy to be here today to support Emily and to have another opportunity to thank her for all of our work within our nonprofit. And thanks for having us here today.
I'm Akello Karamoka. I'm from Detroit, and I'm from with Keep Growing Detroit. And thank you guys for inviting us.
Hi, I'm Deborah Bunkley. I'm retired from the university, but I sit on the board for the League of Women Voters, and I love this program. You do a great job in this community, and thank you for you and them.
Hi, I'm Silva Zonder, and I'm Emily's stepmom. Hi, I'm very happy to be here today. We work downtown here at Hermanos. We serve our community in a different way. We do research. And we're here to support Emily and the whole group, amazing group, to see how happy she's been and wonderful things she's done. So thank you very much.
I'm Jeff Zonder. I have absolutely nothing to add to that, but I've really enjoyed hearing about everything that's been going on with this program all semester. It's been really a super experience for Emily based on everything I've heard.
That's wrong, man. My name is Wayne Curtis. My connection with this building at EMEAC is pure love, and have an art space that's upstairs, and got involved in the urban agriculture movement a few years ago. Was an apprentice there. And Keep Growing Detroit, and I did some artwork with them, and I love the students to death. They make me laugh. I've learned so much from them, being in the class. That's it. I'm gonna miss y'all so much.
Good afternoon. My name is Craig, and I'm the Associate Director. I hope you have a sense of just already of like this tremendous community, learning community that we call ourselves, because we're all learning constantly and challenging each other in this program, and it's really because of all these wonderful people that are here. And so we're so fortunate and grateful that you're here, especially considering the conditions outside. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Annie, I'm Diana Copeland. I am fourth generation living in Detroit, and I am faculty for the community organizing Semester Detroit cohort, and I love this cohort, and I am also going to miss you all so much.
I'm Marion. I'm the program coordinator for Semester in Detroit. I'm an East Sider, but I currently live on the Southwest side, so sorry, East Side, but I'll be back. And yeah, I've loved this group, and they make me wish every cohort was this small, honestly, because I feel like I've just been able to get to know them so much better and know how they work as a group too, so.
Hi everyone, I'm Kristen Moretto. I'm a director at GBSU, so this program falls under the new Office of Community Partnerships and Student Professional Development, and I've had a great time getting to know everyone.
All right.
Hello everyone, I'm Dominic. I did the program last year. I worked with Inside Out, and this program has meant a lot to me, so I'm really glad to see all the wonderful things that we do.
Hi, my name's Rob Irvin. I'm from Grand Rapids, so thanks for the snow coming today. Julia is my daughter, and I'm very proud to have her here. Thank you for being so welcoming.
All right.
I'm Rob's dad, Julia's grandpa. Generational stretch. Glad to be here. We were delighted when we moved her in and actually walked around this room and read some of this vintage stuff on the walls, you know. So apparently it's carrying on to today. Glad to be with you guys.
Hello, most of y'all know me, but the people who don't know me, I am the finance director for EMEAC, and I do it.
Hello, my name is Jack Kyle. I'm an environmental educator, and currently I work upstairs with Detroit Audubon. Thank you.
All right.
I'm Leah Greenwell. I'm operations coordinator at Inside Out. I had the pleasure of working with Kayla this semester, Dominic a year ago. We've always had such wonderful interns and then relationships that continue after a semester in Detroit. Thank you.
Hi, I'm from Texas.
Okay, thank you all for doing that.
Okay, so, oh no, this is not,
I might have turned it off.
there's no, oh. Huh? No? Just want to make sure
We
we
just
can.
have to turn it off and on again.
Bluetooth.
There we go.
Is that going to work?
Yes,
Should be good now.
Yay, okay. Not that I really. Okay, so right now we're all going to go through and talk about some of the larger overarching ideas that we have taken away from our semester here. And we're going to do that as individuals. So the first thing we're going to talk about is going to be that Detroit consists of many cultures, not just the ones that are necessarily publicized. And that's going to be me talking about my experience with the Clark Park Coalition, with Anthony and Dora. It'll be funny for me to explain what they do when the people who run it are right here, but I'm going to try. So, Clark Park is a 31-acre giant plot of green land in southwest Detroit. And it's currently run by the Clark Park Coalition by Anthony, Dora, and company. In order to provide the neighborhood's youth with 4 seasons worth of recreational activities, which can be anything from photography with their Southwest native Annalie Vasquez, who teaches the kids, or ice hockey on their regulation-sized outdoor rink, which is a really, really popular thing there, as I've learned from doing the paperwork. And then another thing I want to talk about with Clark Park is that it challenges the stereotypes that outsiders may pin onto Detroit, that it's this monocultural place, given that Southwest has a primarily Latino population, large new immigrant population, something that you wouldn't necessarily hear outsiders talking about when they think of Detroit on the whole. But it's a thriving community, and it's been a pleasure to be able to become a part of it this semester. And it's also pretty unique and defies some of the original or the outside narratives of Detroit, in that the Clark Park Coalition is an example of a community founding an organization by and for itself. It was founded by people in Southwest, people like Anthony, for the sake of benefiting Southwest residents and other Detroit residents, but that's something that I think might get lost, especially now in the narrative of Detroit. You hear a lot about outsiders coming in to try to benefit, but this is a culture where people decided what their own community needed after the Parks and Recreation Department of the city started having budget cuts. The community decided they wanted to keep this park going, and with the help of a few people and some major rallying, they were able to. So it definitely is a unique culture in that, and it defies some stereotypes. So like I said earlier, I did a lot of paperwork at Clark Park, but that is just scratching the surface. I was also able to work with a lot of children, some kids whose parents just like weren't necessarily home after school, so they came into our recreation center inside to come color or whatever. They'd walk in and be like, Tessa, where are my coloring pages? They knew. They knew what was coming. I also helped a little bit with the photography classes. I helped with different community-wide events that Clark Park was affiliated with, like Open Streets, which is where these dancers were. I helped Anna Lee, the photography teacher, put on her photo galleries at WC3 around the area, different campuses. And I was able to just watch this community thrive from the inside out with kids like Sergio and Michael who have been going there their whole lives. So the kids up top, that was taken years ago, but I somehow found it on Google. And I would say that I learned from my overall experience at Clark Park, not only how to properly register kids for hockey, which is a pretty big process, but also how to coach tennis and Spanish, which is another thing. But I learned that Detroit, like I said, can't be defined as monocultural, and that you're never going to know every single cultural narrative of this city, just because there's so much. There's a subculture within every subculture within every subculture. And that's something really valuable, I think, that I've extracted from this experience. Thank you, guys. Now we're going to have Julia up here talking about this next theme.
Hi guys, so the next theme, thank you for that. I did this painting. It's there's a lot of detail to it, but I'm just gonna paint the brush over it, and then afterwards, if you have questions about it, as well. So kind of what I've gathered is there's two main narratives in Detroit, right? The new Detroit, and then the native Detroiter, or like the average day Detroiter sees, which is on the bottom. So the new Detroit, some locations that you could identify with that narrative would be like Corktown, or Little Caesars Arena, the Q Line, Griswold, Quicken Loans, and then things like that. So the big company face of Detroit that the media often puts out. And then on the bottom, on the far one, I'll just walk through like kind of each panel on the bottom. So this is like kind of from my perspective. Of course, if you live here, I might not fully understand yet your narrative as a native Detroiter, but I'm trying. So on the far end, on the far right, is supposedly describing like Marathon Oil. We took a tour there, so I got to kind of see the realities of that. The next panel over this way is a water spigot, kind of showing the water crisis and how that has impacted the native Detroiter. But with that, I also put produce in the background to show like the agriculture movement that's in the city. And then the middle one is there's a woman's face of a child, kind of showing like through the systemic issues how the family structure has been broken down over time. But with that, there's the Black Power movement hand, which is kind of showing they're making their own community despite the difficulties that they face. And then this one over, it's a little more difficult to see, but there's a house on fire, which there's multiple things with that. The housing crisis is one, but also like in the narrative of Detroit, there's a lot of, like fire is a big part of the narrative. There's been a couple burnings in the city, like Devil's Night, things of that nature. But then there's also Hammer to kind of show like how people are rebuilding their own livelihoods through ingenuity and things like that. And then the last one over are Sneakers, showing the poor transportation system in the city. Just like, it's a reality that a lot of people face, and we often think that Q Line solves it, but it does not. So, and then lastly, an important part of this piece is there is like smoke coming up from the bottom, kind of just showing like these realities are still there, and they're still showing through into the real Detroit, even though we don't want them to, or the media doesn't want them to, but they're still there and they're still prevalent. So, yeah, that's just an overview of this, but.
That was not an assignment.
Okay, and next I'm gonna invite up Kayla to talk about Stories Are Everywhere.
All right.
Oh, don't stand in the projector.
I know. So, again, I'm Kayla, and one of the things that I've learned throughout this semester is that stories are everywhere, and there's more than one story. As an English literature major, I was particularly excited to be taking Lolita Hernandez's creative writing class, and it has taught me to notice people and places, details more, and see all of the stories that are around us all the time. And in that vein, I'm going to go ahead and share just 2 place sketches. So these are assignments that we did for Lolita's class to just give a brief overview of a single location that is in Detroit or anywhere, honestly. And I'll be reading a few of those just to illustrate all of the different dynamics that you can find here in Detroit. So, so this is the first place sketch, and it's of this place that is right up here. The shade of gray, the sandy dirt and rocks that cover the length of the parking lot share are the same color as the sky today, masked with low-hanging clouds that migrate lethargically across the stratosphere. Cars of all makes, models, colors, and conditions are scattered throughout the rows designated for them, but the combination of an unusual number of empty parking spaces and dull hue cast by the dreary weather make them all look like they are awaiting the junkyard. Grass and plants sprout up sporadically in the lot, mostly near the posts of the chain-link fences or beside the corners of the cement parking blocks, probably causing passers-by to mentally designate them as weeds instead of just nature. These same passers-by would probably think upon first glance that this parking lot looks depressing, and first instinct might say, who could blame them? But right now, there is a kind of stillness, as though the space is lost in thought. The noise of the nearby construction is strangely absent, and the lack of cars filtering in and out has induced a motionlessness that almost suggests contemplation. And that is when the birds come. Small dun-colored city sparrows in huddles of 3 or 4 hop and peck amongst the sparse grass, wings folded, eyes open, unafraid because there is no one to shoo them away. If the birds are here now, then maybe the quiet isn't inherently saddening, and the gray sky isn't necessarily melancholic. Because now is when the birds are taking the time to tell no one in particular, with their natural and wordless discourse of carefree, minuscule bounding along the ground, that the plants in the parking lot don't have to be thought of as weeds. So that was at the parking lot that all of us who are part of semester in Detroit use every day. And I'll go ahead and read it's a cool place. And I'll go ahead and read one more quick place sketch, just to illustrate once again that there are all kinds of places here in Detroit. This is of the laundromat that I quite frequently use, also as part of this program. A wall made up entirely of windows and glass doors faces the parking lot. White painted words are scrawled across the transparent storefront to advertise the open hours, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week. The opposite wall is lined with dryers, some of them silent, some of them creating the rhythmic sound of clothes tumbling toward their final stages of freshness. And all in between are rows of washing machines, appliances with brighter white exteriors than one would have thought with how often they're used. The occasional blue laundry cart is scattered about the place, one in front of this machine, one in front of that one, as though patiently waiting and ready to be used again, even if one of their 4 wheels is askew and can't quite fully touch the ground without wobbling. College kids filter in and out with clothes they couldn't convince their parents to clean.
A family stands by with 2 small kids, a boy and a girl, who the parents accuse of candy bars from the vending machine while they all wait for the spin cycle to die down. A woman who comes in every week to wash her work uniform and children's soccer jerseys neatly folds her items into a cracked plastic laundry basket resting upon the tiled floor. The plug-in box fans in the corners of this communally domestic space whir loudly. But every person who has unintentionally found themselves here in the pathway of strangers, brought together only by chance and detergent, circles the laundromat as quietly as a Sunday. Let me share, and with that, we have Jose.
Oh, and let's try.
Jordan has some great stories as well. She's just too humble.
Check out her book.
Seriously, check out her book.
Yeah. Surprise.
So Jose is going to come up next to talk about how real history is not always what is written.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. So, one of the concepts we talked about in our 20th century of history class was that real history isn't always written down. 2 narratives that we focused on were the rise and fall narrative of Detroit, as well as the community's narrative. So, the rise and fall narrative of Detroit chooses the 1967 rebellion as the focal point, which shifted the downward spiral of Detroit. I specifically call it rebellion because we were also educated on not just the 5 days in which the uprisings took place, but also the decades prior. The unjust and racist activities that were taking place by the governments and social actions which continuously deterred and set aside the African American population while rising up historically white Anglo-Saxon populations. Examples of these would be education, the lack of resources for educational reforms, as well as police brutality, in which police were actively beating and taking advantage of African Americans and their inability to speak up for themselves. Employment, which was racist in the unions who were mostly white, were not allowing African Americans to be working with them because they didn't want to be associated with African American peoples. Additionally, the housing, in which were also racist, and Anglo-Saxons did not want to live alongside African American populations, leading to the government to spend more time uprising or giving more additional resources to Anglo-Saxon peoples rather than African Americans. If you would like more information about that, I wrote my entire book. So yeah, the second narrative is with the water crisis. The water crisis, the media wants to tell you that African Americans or low economic status residents within Detroit cannot afford to pay their water bills, and that's why there's all these water shutoffs. The real reason is because the GLWA, which is the Great Lakes Water Authority, systemically increases the prices. Oh, it's not working?
Bluetooth.
Okay. Systemically increases the prices for Detroit residents while also leaving suburban residents with lower water costs. Thus, without programs to help these low-income families increase their wealth to gain water to this access that they uprise and they have inflated. That you can do more research on with the We the People of Detroit, who did an entire booklet about this information. Yeah, real history is not what it's always written.
Hi, my name is Emily, again, for those who I don't know. Okay, so this theme that I'm going to talk about is that food brings people together. This has very much been the theme of this program, my internship, and my life lately, so I'm going to talk about all those things. Yeah. Okay, so these are some of, there's a bunch of pictures from the semester. But if you look in the middle, sort of the middle top, that's a community dinner that myself and the rest of the cohort put on for all of our professors and the semester in Detroit staff and the EMEAC staff. basically anyone we were friends with we invited. So yeah, we spent all day cooking. Up top, that's all the pasta sauce that we made. We made way too much. There were a few people similar to this. I think the weather was better that day, but we had some last minute cancellations, and we had so much pasta sauce. We were eating that for I think a week straight. Yeah. So that was really fun. That was certainly a big bonding moment for our cohort. And then some other things. This is alone. In the bottom, this is the first community dinner we ever had as a cohort. We've had many since. Upstairs, it's very fun. Currently, we have both of our space heaters in the dining room with us, and so we all just gather around and eat our food together. This is my friend Duke. She's the best. She could not be here today, but that's okay. But she comes over every Monday, and we have a big, we cook dinner every Monday together, us and everyone who's around. And then we threw I threw a community dinner in Ann Arbor at the beginning of the semester too. That's the flyer from that. We made big pots of soup for everyone. So that's me and Molly and Akello. We were in the back. We got breakfast the other day. That was super fun. So we can move on. Okay, and so this is more about my internship and sort of everything that revolves around food at Keep Growing Detroit. In our class, I think it was an internship reflection seminar, we talk about the different ways that communities are formed. Sometimes it's about location, other times it's about identity. In this case, it's all about food. It's all the people who are growing food or contributing to the Detroit food ecosystem in some way. So here are some photos. In the top left, we have a volunteer group that I worked with for many weeks straight. Those two are very silly, and I think that's us harvesting onions. On the top right, that's all the garlic that was going to be distributed to members of the Garden Resource Program communities. In the bottom left, we have a community class where gardeners were learning about grant writing and how to get grants for their small farms in the city. And then the bottom right is basically what I've spent almost all my time doing with Keep Growing Detroit. I've been working on a lot of research on farm food safety, which is a really important concept. And if you want to talk more about that, we can talk about that after this. But basically been compiling a lot of information to help Molly make a farm food safety plan for Plum Street, which is the garden that we work at, and then compiling it to another document that is going to be distributed to a lot of gardeners in the city so that people can start thinking about food safety. So yeah, we can talk more about that later if you're interested. I have a lot to say. Yeah, and then one more slide. And then I'm not going to share any writing with you, but I have a story and my book is over there, and food is very much a theme in those stories as well, so keep that in mind if you check them out later. That's it. See you.
Alright, hi again. So the thing that I was covering was working with communities requires questioning your own identity. And since my internship was with Focus Hope, I had to work in the Hope Village neighborhood, which is a very different neighborhood than what I was raised in. You have to kind of question who you are and who these people are, and kind of figure out really who you are, what you want to do with these people, what you're looking to help, what you're looking to do. And I wrote this little piece on identity. Since I've come to Detroit, I've been wrestling with the idea of change. What is it? Change should be an outward, physical, tangible effort, right? The change should be something that you can grasp and view plain as day so that you know clearly when a shift has occurred, like the colors of leaves, the speed of the wind before a storm, like the cold in the season. Shouldn't it? That's what I thought when I first came here, at least. But when I look around, I realize that isn't the case. Because change isn't always a set pace, not speedy and readily available like we were taught it is. And change isn't permanent, that is most certain. And like myself, change is always constant, change is always there, critiquing and taking note. When I came to Detroit, I thought I could be a change. I wanted so much to become some awakened force that after 316 some odd years, somehow a city that had seen it all still hadn't become prepared for it. I wanted to be greater than myself. I realize now that I had the formula backward. To be greater than oneself and of the potential that you inhabit to become more than the possibility available with no nurturing, no effort, and just wishful thinking is similar to a city trying to be greater than its own people. It's just not possible. So what changed, you might ask? What could have possibly deterred you from such a tall order, from such a heavy order? The answer is the people. Because so much more than any other group of people I've ever met, talked to, worked with, Detroiters more than all the rest seem to have this undeniable belief in the spirit of change. That things are changing all the time, and that the bright future that they envision is just beyond the horizon. In a place that has had so much wreaked upon it, forgotten, altered, devised against, plotted at, and most of all left behind, scarred and bruised, it has a collective sense that change is something that is present on the battlefield, and if the idea itself is something so worth fighting for. That, I have to say, is the greatest effect that the city has had upon my identity. I can say honestly that it hasn't always been 100%, that at times the outcome was bleak, that while I was here I often saw things that made me question the earth I stood upon and the heavens that I railed against. But why should I stop? People here don't give up. At least not without a die-hard last stand, a stand gritted in ground so hard there's moldered dust and chewed belt leather on the grave worn-torn floor. And they never give up on each other. Some of the kindest, most selfless people I've met live in Detroit, and they do it like it's breathing air or turning the keys. I think that has been the biggest takeaway to my identity while I've been here. That you can stand so much with so little. At least that's the way I see it. The story that I wrote is kind of still my identity, my heritage, my home, and some different things that I've been looking back at and questioning, especially in Lolita's writing class while I'm here. So this is just kind of a story about dinner at my dad's house and meeting his friends and different people. So I'll just skip about halfway to it. I open the screen and go in. The front door is flung wide, and that's a telling sign. Either the old man's throwing a party or cooking one hell of a meal. Tonight it's both. As I enter, the steam's pouring out the kitchen, and the table's set, complete with the green felt that's been on there God knows how long. But it stays. It's good for dinner and drinking, and it'll be even better for the complimentary rounds of blackjack instruction I'm sure to receive after we eat. Frank's in the living room, coming over the television speakers. He's just started warming up. The old crooner's already started the night off. Fly Me to the Moon. And Dean's drunk as a skunk already, snapping his fingers, so I'm sure there'll be no more for him later. Don Rickles is on the TV, and he's got every mouth grinning, yucking wide, and this is it. The whole gang's here. My dad comes out of the kitchen with a big pot of spaghetti and sauce, frothing steam. He greets me, smiles big, but he's got his kitchen mindset. So he says, grab a chair, say your prayers. And I never do, so I just sit down and anticipate the hell of a meal that's been prepared. My dad's friends are here, Jimmy and Mike, and they come out the kitchen and finish their conversation on casino etiquette when my dad poses a single question. You gonna shut the hell up and eat, or are you gonna talk all night? And this shuts him up real fast. Jimmy sits down quick, and Mike sidesteps with, I'm waiting on you to serve, man. Come on, brother. And then he shuts the hell up too. We start serving pasta, sauce, a couple meatballs, and I sit next to my dad, who's right across from Jimmy and Mike. Jimmy's an old Irishman with full white hair already at 50, and if it's not from his age, it's probably because he never removes his old trusty state cap. He and my dad go way back to their school days growing up